What I lost was my sense of purpose, my sense of identity. I was number one of 6 children. And when I went to visit my parents, who was I now?
Hi everyone, welcome to the Next Level Finance Podcast, Series 2, Episode 7, if I get my maths right. We have a very special guest, as always, Mohsin Ravjani. Have I said that name right?
Yeah, Ravjani.
Ravjani, got to get it right. Ravjani, he is the CEO of Change Ahead Charity, and he's going to give us a wisdom amazing in this Next Level Finance Podcast across business, property, charity. Get ready for the fun. As I said in the intro for the Next Level Finance Podcast, Series 2, Episode 7, we've got, as I said, Mohsin, who's going to give us so much insight. Mohsin, thank you so much for coming. Really
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation.
We love having guests, especially when they've got it's got 4 decades of knowledge that we're going to try to get a bit of a tip in this podcast. You want to watch this because he's got so much across the board. Mohsin, really enjoyed the conversation as always, and I hope you enjoyed the hospitality.
Absolutely brilliant hospitality.
And we love having guests, especially people like yourself who've done so much already, had so many experiences. And one of the big ones you're going to see either literally rag to riches, became homeless, and then rebuilding it all back up.
Indeed.
Wow. I don't think many people can make that statement and actually back it up.
Yeah.
And I think when we get into it, you'll see in the audience, if you don't get inspiration for this, you're never going to get inspiration, right? I wanted to talk about, there's so much we're going to talk about, but one of the things I wanted to talk about is your journey, and we'll get onto some of these big aspects. So you've been here all your life in the United Kingdom, mostly parents from different parts of the world, right? But one of the biggest things that stuck out to me is you said you didn't go through the full formal education process. Explain why you thought that was enough and then you got into different adventures.
Yeah, I was kind of brought up in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And where...
So for the context for the people who are watching out in our Yorkshire, all our community there, where exactly?
In Elland, which is a small village outside Halifax.
Right, okay.
So, and it was being the eldest of 6 children as well. We didn't really have a kind of anyone in our family who were actually educated through university in the standard route.
Context of, you said 6 in your family, siblings, what's the makeup?
Yeah, there's 4 boys and 2 girls.
Right, okay.
So I was like the guinea pig.
Because you're the eldest.
Because I was the eldest, right?
Right.
And my father always worked like labouring kind of jobs, and he had 2 jobs.
Wow.
Always he had 2 jobs, and it was a big family, and it was hard. I remember coming home from school, buying a loaf of bread and a pot of jam, and that was our afternoon tea within the children, because we weren't that well off. And so schooling and education wasn't the priority. It was getting on with life.
Earn some money.
And earn the money. That's it.
So what age did you stop in education then?
As soon as, I believe it must have been around A-levels, just after A-levels.
So you did A-levels, about 18.
Yeah.
You were like,
I'm done.
And then the journey, which blew my mind, no disrespect, right? You went and became a constable, special constable with the police.
Special constable, yes.
Which is a volunteer.
A volunteer
so
role.
You don't actually get paid to do that, no?
No.
So you did that and you sold insurance.
Yes, life insurance.
Wow. So you're doing life insurance, and then in your spare time, you're helping the community, volunteering as a special police constable.
Yeah.
Explain that dynamic to us.
Yeah, and in the evenings, working in restaurants and takeaways.
How did you sleep? I just want to know, how did you fit all of that fun in?
Yeah. Well, see, the education I found was actually, on reflection, was selling life insurance.
Wow.
Being able to sell the invisible, being able to communicate and engage with others and have empathy, understanding other people's perspective. That in itself, I found the best education I've ever had. And it was with big organizations like your Legal and Generals, your Gresham Life, your Cannon Lincoln, and going to their workshops. And as a young person, learning body language. Why are you sitting with your leg on this side and your arms? You know, there's the barriers.
Make me subconscious.
Yeah, exactly. There's all these different things that you actually learn. And if you can learn that from a young age, and then you can do so much more because those are transferable skills. And then that goes into the kind of special constabulary.
Break that up for us a moment, Mohsin. What skills did life insurance give you, in particular? Part of the now being an entrepreneur and understanding that.
Yeah.
What did it give you? Was it the rapport, sales? What was the key bit of insurance?
All of that.
Yeah.
Rapport, building rapport from zero, no one knowing you. You walk through the door and you have a conversation. Looking at the pictures around the house and talking about the family, talking about the children, the holidays, just building rapport, being human.
So it wasn't even just on the phone, physical meetings, one-to-one. Did you do presentations for many people as well?
Yeah, I mean, the telephone was a very interesting thing because back in the day, we had dial phones and we had to dial the numbers, very sore fingers.
Yeah.
And everything was done through directories. So you literally had a big phone book and you had to go down and ring people up from A to Z. So that in itself, getting hundreds and hundreds of no's every day, just looking for that one yes was in itself exciting. And then go into the library.
What was your conversion back then?
I was very fortunate because I was very playful. I had a higher conversion than most.
Wow.
In getting the calls. And when I got to the houses and the homes, they didn't expect to see me when they opened the door. They expected someone more local, traditional.
Okay.
So that in itself was
In a nice
interesting.
person, from someone from the indigenous population.
Indeed,
Okay.
indeed. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because I have a different telephone voice than I do have a personal face.
I can understand that, and to be honest, I know exactly what you're talking about. So, they weren't expecting someone who spoke quite eloquently to be from your background.
Yes.
How did you overcome that? Because this is great for audience when people perception something else. How did you overcome that? Because that's obviously easily could lead to an objection on what this person wants.
Exactly.
How did you overcome that?
Listen, understand, have empathy. Listen to what the objections are. Understand why they're thinking and feeling that way. And then build a rapport that I'm no different to your expectations. In fact, because I have other knowledge and experience, I can actually add more value, perhaps.
And how long did that process take? Because when you first had it, it'd been shock. They're like, oh, you just blatantly told me to go away, right? I didn't even heard what I had to say.
Yeah.
So how long did you make that adjustment? How long did that take?
It's just through doing it often enough, you build confidence. Because back in the day, besides the phone, we were encouraged us to walk and knock on doors.
Wow, okay.
And there was a lot of door knocking, especially when you were approaching businesses. A business to business, a B2B, is a very different conversation to a B2C.
Of course. B2C is business to consumer, the end people, knocking on the doors.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So selling pensions would be a commercial conversation with a business.
So pensions and life insurance.
Exactly.
And this is in a different environment compared to now.
Yeah, we're talking early 80s. So.
Wow. I was a nip at that. Wow. Okay, so you learned all this. Fantastic experience. Now, I want to work onto the big one, which I sort of said at the headline at the top. you obviously utilised the knowledge, and you said one of the things before I think was that you used the knowledge to then invest in property. Because you realise a lot of the people, the reason why they were coming to you is they didn't have buy-to-let back then.
Yes.
So they were trying to get mortgage insurance covers and all this stuff.
Exactly that.
So you learned that the people that were successful were investing in property. So you started replicating that.
Absolutely.
So tell the audience, what was your first property that you bought as an investment?
One of the first ones I bought was a place called, well, number 2 Lancaster Grove, and then number 4 Lancaster Grove, 2 semis next door to each other, and just let them out as single lets to students.
Wow, and where was this?
And lived in one room myself. This was in Leeds, in West Yorkshire.
And back then you probably bought it in your own name because that's what everyone
Yes.
did. Right,
Yeah.
wow. So you bought a couple of properties and then thought, wow, I'm making some money here.
Yeah, worked in restaurants, takeaways, hardly used the room, but it was perfect, good cash flow.
And then fast forward, how long did it take you to build your property portfolio back
And
then?
that was enough to have regular cash and income, and then focused on life insurance as a business rather than building a property portfolio.
So you had a trading business, then you introduced your own business as life insurance?
Yes.
Okay. How long and what age? How long were you doing this for, and what age?
This, we're talking about when I was about 18, 20 years old.
So you opened your business within a couple of years of doing the role for someone
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
You then opened your own business. How long did you have that life insurance business for?
That continued for about 10 years.
So you had the life insurance business for 10 years. You were generating cash flow from that business, and you were parking it in property.
Yes.
Which is the traditional model for a lot of successful entrepreneurs, and we have conversations every day. They've got a trading business, and because you know how sales works, that's the key part of skill set, you know how to generate leads, convert them, add value, retain customers. Then you got this trading business making money, and you're parking the cash in the property. You mentioned you ended up having about 15 roughly properties at one time,
Yeah.
buy-to-lets.
Yeah, yeah.
What age are we talking about now? And
We're talking about, maybe I was about 40, 45 at the time.
right. So
and
by the
built
time
those
you,
up.
so by the time you got 45, over a period of 20 plus years, 25 years, you built a property portfolio, a trading business up to age 30, consultancy. What did you do after the age 30 for consultancy? You obviously stopped
Yeah.
the business, well, the insurance.
Well, yeah,
license.
the life insurance.
Why did you stop, just for the audience?
Because I focused more on consultancy as
Got
I
it.
had more experience in that, and that had greater value being a property consultant.
So you were helping other entrepreneurs build their portfolios?
Yeah, yeah.
And you had a property consultancy? Okay. And
Financial services, because
Wow.
that complemented the property.
wow.
Because you
when
need
you
money.
mean financial services, you
Well,
mean
loans, mortgages, exactly.
Ah,
Commercial
got
loans,
it.
bridging.
And you helped have done a lot
Yeah,
of that?
yeah. And I still do those type of activities.
Wow. So that's your consultancy?
Yeah.
So you did that from 30 to 45?
And ongoing.
Ongoing. But that was that, and then primarily that supported you. That was your income generation, as well as building wealth and assets.
Exactly.
So you, right now, you're happy. You're married, 4 children,
Yes.
and then age 45, bit scary at this time.
That's you
my
now.
judge. Hopefully, Mrs. watching.
He's okay.
All right. What happened? Because you had a major life event, and
Yeah,
the audience. It
indeed.
literally took you from riches to rags. Please explain to the audience
Yeah.
what happened.
4 children, 19 years of marriage, property portfolio, financial services. We had supported living, looking after adults with learning disability and mental health.
Wow.
And a good portfolio. My wife and I decided to go separate ways. And that's okay. It happens to everyone or to a lot of people. And people manage and cope with the fallout. But in my wisdom, I decided to let it all go to my ex-wife, who then could look after my children. 4 children, all in private schools from a very young age to university. So there's a sense of responsibility, right? And I didn't want any of them to come back to me at any day in the future to say, look, I'm in this position, whatever that might be, is because of you have taken X, Y, or Z. So I thought I'll keep the IP, intellectual property, and I'll do it again tomorrow. 3 months, 6 months time, I'll be absolutely fine.
Let me sort of break that down, because you've given a huge amount of insight. So you've been running multiple businesses, property as well as your consultancy businesses. You accumulate all this wealth. Your wife has obviously been looking after your children. I assume, was she working at all?
She worked in the business at that point.
In businesses. Okay, so working in the business to help support, but predominantly looking after the children. And then you've decided to go separate ways. And at that point, your wisdom was you wanted to do the right thing. You gave everything to her. What was the fallout and knock-on effect to you as an individual? Because I mentioned rag to riches and riches to homeless.
Yeah.
How did that happen for someone in their mid-40s, by most people's view, successful? What happened and what was going through your mind? Because the audience need to really hear this.
Yeah. Well, unbeknownst to me, I actually lost. It wasn't the physical, tangible, material things that I owned. What I lost was my sense of purpose, my sense of identity. I was number one of 6 children. And when I went to visit my parents, who was I now entering the door? I didn't have a wife with me. I didn't have my children with me. And it was very challenging. I ended up very depressed, because when you've been doing something for 20 years and it's always been your thing, you're the guy who does the morning school runs, the afternoon school runs, the school plays and everything else. I was very integral as a father. And I ended up, like I said, anxiety, depression, even to the point of suicide. At one point, homeless, sleeping in the car. Too embarrassed to tell my family, my parents, my friends where I was.
How long did that period where you're sleeping in the car, too embarrassed to talk to anybody, how long was that period?
It must have been at least 6 months.
Wow.
But I had friends who in the property industry who were very kind to me and arranged accommodation.
Wow.
Through creative methods.
So you had all of this, by any estimation, worth multi-millions at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you self-made, built, you've given it all up, and you've just got a car.
Yeah.
And you've got hardly anything in your bank account.
Yeah.
That you can't afford rent, so you're living on handouts. But most of the time you're living in the car for 6 months.
Yeah.
You can't go to the family because of the embarrassment that you felt, and you lost all your confidence. From that point of view, because that is the low point, and we've had other guests who've gone through similar stuff, and we are so privileged that you're sharing some of these insights, because many people are watching just think that may call it a day at that point.
Well, I did. I was driving up the M1 because a lot of my properties were based in Luton. If anyone knows the geography, London and Luton, there's a M1 and Junction 10. And I thought, Junction 8, there's a sign here saying, careful accidents.
Junction 8, by the way, is my hometown, Hemel Hempstead.
It says, there's a yellow sign saying so many accidents have occurred at this particular point.
Oh my days.
So please drive carefully. So I thought, okay, maybe if I was another statistic, would it really matter? So I rang up my PA at the time, this is before the divorce, because it doesn't happen overnight, these things, right? And I said to her, could you just give me the sum assured of my life policies, please? And luckily for me, she said, no, sir, I'm busy right now. Can I do that in an hour's time? But as you're driving 50, 60 miles an hour or 70 up the M1, you actually get to a point within an hour and you miss that Junction 8.
Wow.
Right?
You're saying it was that close?
It was that close.
So when she did tell you a bit later...
It was too late then. I'd gone past that point.
That was the only time you had that point?
Yeah.
So what did you do when you knew you were at that bottom point?
I just thought, right, okay,
where did you go for help and things like this?
I didn't go anywhere for help as a strategy. And that's why I think I am here today, because I because there wasn't anything that stood out where I could go. So I just kind of made it up as I went along. And that's why the charity exists where we are today, to help people, to give them direction, to give them housing first, a place to live. Then unravel whatever it was that got them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And holistic support and care for a period of time. Because there's amazing charities and support groups out there, but they're all working silo.
Yeah. That to be honest, I've been caught sort of, it's just mind-blowing how you've gone from there, and then because of your own experiences, you've developed a solution to a problem that you actually faced. And which is and it builds us nicely onto, I guess, the next bit is, how does someone rebuild from your experience? What is the chain of thought that they should go through? Because I'm sure there's many people who've had this, because life is like this.
It is.
So now you're here, from here, and it's different to previously when you were here, because you now come from, after you've made something and then losing, it's always harder than never having it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So now you've sort of lost everything, you've given up, and you've come to this point where you're having to do this, you don't even know why. How did you rebuild yourself and confidence and literally not be homeless anymore? What did you do?
It takes time. The biggest thing is to build your confidence rather than building assets. And because that is your asset. The way you think, the way you are, the way you behave, the way you present yourself to the world is the only asset you have. The rest of it can come, it can go. And that's what I kind of realized through time.
So that intellectual property is not just what's in your head, it's the confidence to execute it, and you have to gain the confidence. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment.
Wow. And that took you a number of years, you were saying?
Yeah, it took me nearly 10 years.
So it took you nearly 10 years to recover, and in the process, part of your recovery was to help others.
Yeah.
Which talks a lot for you as a person.
Yeah, and also, again, because everything we did was research backed. And what we found is that when you help others, research shows you actually feel better yourself.
It's huge in so many different ways. That is massive. I think one of the other things is a lot of the audience, because those are your personal challenges that shape Mohsin as a person. I want to talk about the business challenges, because with all that going on, you still have challenges from business. What is your biggest challenges that you feel entrepreneurs that you face and others will face, and how have you overcome? Because I think you mentioned a few key ones that you have.
The biggest challenges I found was building your confidence. Because that doesn't come easy once you feel that's been knocked. Because that's your core personality, and your values always remain the same, to help others. Whether you have something or not, you can still help others, right? So I kind of learned how to become a mental health counsellor. So I trained with a charity called Shout to help people like Samaritans, but through a text platform.
Wow.
And I met Prince William as part of it all.
Wow, amazing. So your confidence is probably where the clarity on the business mission comes from.
Yes.
You said clarity.
It needs to be clear.
You need to be
What
clear,
are you going to do?
and the confidence is part of that, because that allows you to get clarity. So your clarity came at that point when you had that event in life and you thought, I always wanted to help people, and that's what you've done consistently. Now the key to help people is, I'm going to have a charity, Challenge Ahead.
Yeah.
That actually, because it's been going for 7 years, is that right?
The charity is about 3 years old, but it was a social enterprise before that. But yeah, I mean,
about
as a model, about 7 years.
And that was based on your life events. That's why that's become a
Exactly.
focus. And it's huge, because whenever you meet Mohsin, I was fortunate to meet him at a House of Lords event. They did invite me, little old me, there on that, and we were lucky to have a conversation. And at that point, I said, Mohsin, we're going to have to do a podcast. And you were like, who's this guy? Right? And it was to show the world this story. because your story for me is quite compelling. It's got a combination of so many different aspects, and we're touching base through all these different things, and I hope the audience are getting huge value about inspiration. Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Just a quick one, couple of things. One, if you like the value and you want regular outputs, sign up to the Gold House Gazette. It's in the links below. And number two, if you're enjoying our YouTube channel, please do subscribe. It helps us so much. Back to the podcast. You mentioned clarity and about confidence linked to it, but you also said consistency and the Chinese coin syndrome, as they call it.
Yeah.
Tell me, what do you mean for that?
Yeah, consistency, simply because when you are in a space like this, where you understand housing is the most important thing, because without a home and a roof over your head, you can't really think of tomorrow. It's very challenging. Even if we had no food, it's okay. But when you don't have a roof over your head, you don't have that sense of security. So once you have security, then we can work on the food. We can then work on the holistic support, any sort of challenges that got you there in the first place. It could be debt, it could be physical, it could be substance abuse or anything like that, right? Personal relationships and counselling.
So that's set up by you and your co-founder?
Yeah, my co-founder. We worked together in setting up, because her focus was always on...
So what's your co-founder?
Sheena Patel.
Sheena. So Sheena and yourself run this charity?
Yes.
And your both focus is to help people going through all these different aspects. And that's where you have to be consistent in your message. What's the key? I know you help so many people, but I think there's two key big areas I remember that you were mentioning that you were helping with. Can you just mention the two key groups or people and charities?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I also mentor in prisons. So because prisons, especially like in the youth offenders at Feltham and the adult prison in Hemel Hempstead, because those are places where there's a lot of cost to the government, and it's revolving doors. It's a bit of an industry in that sense, but we can help actual people and their families by supporting them, with the housing first, and then with the holistic support. And the same applies to domestic violence victims. And we're looking at different ways of actually working to find a solution where we provide housing and support for the actual perpetrator rather than the victim, because then that deals with the problem in itself and reduces victims of crime. And it builds better communities and people as well.
So you're rehabilitating the offenders to be able to be part of society with skill set. So that's one aspect. I think the other one that you help a lot, I think you mentioned domestic abuse.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, please.
I mean, one of the things like recently, early hours in the morning, the team got a call, a woman with 4 children had to flee her home.
Wow.
And that's not nice, especially at that hour in the morning as well. So obviously we have properties available through our network with our social housing providers. So the property was available, they went to the property, but they had no food, had no clothing. And one of the most important things is communication. So because one of our partners is Vodafone, we were able to give them a SIM card to communicate to all the people that are important to that person.
Wow.
A family, friends, whoever it might be, and then keep the perpetrator away.
It's really mind-blowing, and we'll get on to successes because I think that's definitely one of the successes. So your clarity and consistency, you sort of explain how you've done that through charity, because that's what your main focus, along with a few other things you do. The other bit, from a business challenging perspective, is networking. And you mentioned, so a bit of a big value-added lesson here. How do you make networking count? What's the number one tip that you do?
For me,
if you're allowed, happy to share that with the audience.
Okay, it's a cheeky one. And that is to attend events, sit in the front row, or as near as possible. And when it's Q&A, be the first to put your hand up and grab the mic. Talk about something relevant that's about them, not about you, about them. And bring in something, for us it's charity, so how are you helping the third sector or charities with the amazing things that you are doing right now? So it's all about them.
Wow.
And that way, rather than working the room and the one-to-one, it's one-to-many.
Because everyone then remembers the first question. Because people remember the first one and the last one and forget everything in between.
And
That's what happens.
Exactly. And also because it's not about profit, it's about people. And people want to help other people.
Wow. Huge. So you got a huge tip, how to make networking count. We want to talk about successes. I think you just touched on one before. So you've been running this charity in different forms for 7 years. Is that probably one of your biggest successes about how you've given back?
Yeah, I think so. Simply because the way that we kind of looked at business and success is, it's not about us. It's about all of us.
Yes.
And for us, it's about collaboration.
Yeah.
How can we help others fix their problem while we are doing what we do to help our beneficiaries? I'll give you an example. We do wellness workshops. We do Japanese calligraphy.
Wow.
And yoga, breath work, so many different things, AI workshops, financial literacy.
Wow.
We delivered to 2,100
We'll get onto that
last
financial
year.
literacy later, but
But the point here is that by doing all of this, what we're actually doing is solving a problem for other businesses who have ESG reporting, environmental social governance reporting to do now as a directive, right? And by them having a transaction with us, not only are they helping their staff with those kind of things that we offer.
ESG just for people that's over a certain size, it becomes mandatory.
Yeah. CSRD, Corporate Social Responsibility Directive.
I think that's normally over the audit threshold.
It is, but that's why we work with a lot of city firms.
Got it.
In central London. And because they're a brilliant law firm or an accountancy, they don't have time or expertise to help others. But by doing a transaction with us, we are now able to give them a social impact report showing that because of this transaction today, Zee, we were able to house 2 people for the first time with the front door keys to their own home.
Wow.
That's powerful.
That's huge. That's a huge success.
Exactly.
I think the other thing you mentioned, a different type of success, you mentioned spending time with the family. Please touch base, because people forget we're humans. And this is so important. Tell me that this is one of the biggest success, how you know, in your humble opinion, what you justify it or you believe is success.
Yeah. I mean, as you said earlier, rags to riches, to rags, and working my way up again. And what you kind of realize is what actually has true value. Is it a shopping trip in Harrods? Is it going to the Maldives? Is it another trip to Dubai? Is it the car? Is it the house? Is it the school fees? No. What's the most important that I found was sitting around the table with all my children and eating, talking, laughing, joking, and just giving them the support that they need as children. Children need parents, and the way they kind of measure love is with time.
Yeah.
You spend time with them unconditionally. That's the most important thing. It has to be unconditional. It's all about them. And that is success to me.
I think you might watch some of my socials. The legacy and the family legacy for me is all about your investment in them. Heart first.
Exactly.
Brain
it has
second.
to come from here.
Yeah, because what you're trying to give them is the tools to survive and hopefully carry on your principles and beliefs. Because they ultimately become what you are like and what you do. Not what you just say, but what you do.
Absolutely.
And I think that's always lost in society in modern day because everyone thinks it's just a, no disrespect, TikTok, I use it a lot, or just a TikTok away. It's not, it's a lot more. And sometimes you have to be tough to be nice because as a parent, especially a father, slightly different to a mother, but both parents have such an important role.
Absolutely.
And they've got to influence the children.
Yeah.
Massive. Huge thing there. I want to ask you, and always ask the entrepreneurs, what is your approach when you're trying to build relationships in business? What's your approach? Tell me how you go about things so the entrepreneurs
again,
watching this can learn from you.
Yeah, again, what I kind of focus on, cliche, but it's so powerful, is to listen more and speak less. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in proportion. And ask leading questions, build rapport. And one of my specialities is, there's a big secret. I mean, I'm giving it away for free, so please use it carefully. And that is, if I could give you a magic wand today, what would you like to see happen? And that really is so powerful because it takes away all the limitations and barriers that have gotten in their way for them not to do what they want to do. So if you can help them by listening to whatever the answers are, and I'm very fortunate and blessed that I have networks within so many different industries and global organizations as well, and different countries too.
Wow.
So therefore, I could possibly connect them with the right person to solve their problem.
Wow. I don't. I think a lot of people don't really understand the power of having a conversation. The whole point I set the podcast, I was saying to you earlier, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, it's my biggest privilege as an entrepreneur. And whatever I've done to be able to have guests like yourself and others come to our office and hopefully we can show hospitality, make them feel at home, and them to share this journey, because so many people are watching and the thing that they lack is not normally ability, it's inspiration and motivation. And you only get inspired and motivation by watching others who have had similar experience to yourself, or something that you need to have in your life. And where do you learn it from? You learn it from others' experiences. That's the most accelerated way to success in whatever you want to do, both personally and business. And I think a lot of people don't always dot those two dots together.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that, you understand, and that's why we drive the podcast, and we're so privileged to have someone like yourself on. I do agree with the magic wand. I think we use that a lot to try to get clarity to people and try to get that journey. I think going back to, because one of your biggest thing that comes out is the charity. So you've done multiple businesses and the charity. You still run a consultancy business and charity, and with, funny enough, using property and social housing,
cornerstone,
which is so important to be able to provide this to the people the charity has. Tell me, what is the biggest, achievement for the charity from your experiences that you feel, yeah, this is what I did it. When it's all said and done, I would say, I did that. What's the big one for you?
I think that's a very difficult question because it's not just the one.
Okay.
It's small parts of a lot of things that create the one whole.
Because there is a lot, and apologies on that, but if I'm going to summarise, priority-wise, what's the thing that's had the biggest impact?
The biggest impact to me is being able to help someone who feels there's no hope for them. When they feel there's no one else out there for them.
Wow.
And it could be a little thing, like I said, a SIM card. It could be a food voucher. One of our partners is one of the biggest food wastage apps out there. I can't name the name as yet because we're still running a pilot and it's not public knowledge yet. But we're able to give food vouchers to people who have no money for food.
Wow. And do you know what this is? Because the time we're recording this is after Ramadan 2025. And obviously that's one of my key makeups of me as a human being. Ramadan is all based around what you've just mentioned. And the other faiths have their equivalents as well. I think the Lent period, which has been watered down over the years, but it's quite built on charity and helping others.
Yes.
And I'm sure the Bani Israel have certain days where they fast for this purpose as well. I think there's 25-hour fast when I've spoken to people in that background. And many other faiths as well. Apologies if I missed them. For me, this is one of the key purposes. Why do you feel and this is a question we probably didn't speak much about, why do you feel we've lost focus on these things which are really more important and more than on a lifetime and the real legacy, but we focus more on just getting that material one, which goes as the weather changes?
I mean, again, a very good question, and I'll go back to a thing called COVID.
Yeah.
COVID was awful. A lot of people died, a lot of disruption. Literally, the world changed overnight for practically everyone on the planet, and that is just inconceivable. However, what did happen was that communities came together. Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, neighborhood groups, they all came together for one thing, was to help each other. Go and walk the dog, go and get prescriptions, go and make some food for somebody, right? Check in on somebody, are they okay? I became a volunteer part of first responder, Good Sam, whatever it was, just to call people up, hey, how you doing? Because they were lonely.
Wow.
Right? And that I'm still getting messages from them to call people from the GP saying so-and-so is lonely, can you give them a call and check in with them?
Wow.
Right? So it brought people together. And that's what we lost sight of. That as humans, we need each other to survive. It's not the material stuff that makes us great. It's what we can do for somebody else that makes us great.
Amazing, amazing share of insight. I think a lot of people focus on the negativities of COVID. There's so many without getting taken off YouTube.
My mother that passed away during COVID.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It was obviously, as a child, as a man, as a human, one of the worst experiences that can ever happen to you.
It's when the parents,
But it was also a great learning that when you lose something so valuable and important to you, you lose all fear.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can do anything because I'm not scared. What's the worst can happen?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. COVID happened. My mum passed away. I was, depressed, bankrupt, homeless. What else can happen?
Wow.
Only good can happen. So let's all do good together. It's easier.
I think you such powerful statements have Mohsin. It's we concentrate on the negativities normally, but that's one of the positivities from COVID. I agree with you. There is quite a few negative aspects, but the community aspect, it did bring people because at that time they weren't running around like headless chickens that we do most of our life.
It didn't matter what watch you were wearing or what car you had outside or the value of your house. Yeah. Everyone was on the same level playing field.
It is mind-blowing, and people have short-term memory because it was only yesterday when this happened. Yeah, it felt like forever, but it wasn't that long,
true.
Right? And the other bit, we always have a little segment, is tax and finance system in the UK, and I know you've got quite strong views on this. And it's hard for me to always put context. I do see a lot of people with this, but because of my training and all the different aspects, it's very different how I look at this, but I understand this, but I want to get your view. One of the issues you've obviously faced and others is financial literacy is a huge problem. Tell us why and how you've helped try to resolve this.
Yeah, absolutely. I left school early and I didn't use accountants for the things that I could extract as value. I used them to do the bare minimum, was to file accounts, and that's it. And from that, what I realized and what we do as a charity, like last year, we helped 2,100 pupils in schools from year 7 and above with financial literacy.
Wow.
Help them understand what is money, what's interest, what's inflation, what's a savings plan, what's a pension plan. I know they're young, but this was, and help them with budgeting. So when they get pocket money, what could they do with it? And then we have games.
Wow.
So we have games where they have a pot of money and they put it into different pots. We put them in groups, and the excitement around the room when they see the projection of what their pot actually did, because we base it on, say, 5 years ago, if you had done this, what would it do today? So that's investing in equity, in stocks, in bonds, and all these type of things. to give them a flavour of the real world. That doesn't happen. So now we actually do that in universities as well.
Do you know, it's interesting to remind me, I'm trying to remember it, when I was in the sixth form, we did something like young entrepreneurs, I forgot the formal name for it, and you had to set up business. I was a treasurer or something, assistant treasurer even back then, and we've done an event, we actually made some money from it.
Right.
We went to the event and all the processes, but you certainly learnt so much, how much you have to invest, what do you have to do, how do you get people on side, how do you generate money, and we were selling food and all this stuff, and we did like a local event for a primary school.
Right, okay.
And yeah, it was just eye-opening. I just remember this, and it was just like, wow.
Because you know why you remember? That's authentic learning. And that's one of the reasons we get invited to universities today, because they are teaching in business school in particular about ESGs, SDGs and CSR, all these kind of lovely terms and models. Then they invite us to show the students in practical terms, what does that look like? How do businesses, charities, organizations apply these principles in society and build better communities?
I think it is knowledge transfer, and I think one of the other points that you mentioned is what, as an entrepreneur now, not just as a personal thing, entrepreneur, from what we call bare essential compliance to, I think, management accounts and adding value.
Yes.
How did that help, that shift in mindset helped your business, right? As an entrepreneur, because when we say management accounts and all this stuff, people are like, what is that? I don't understand. Everyone uses this word. It means different things to different people. For me, it's providing management information to help make better decisions. How have you utilised that in your different business capacities?
For us, it's all about forecasting. Because no one has a crystal ball. But what we do have is data and information that we can lean upon to give us a better idea and understanding of what tomorrow could look like, and what we can, what levers we can use to get to where we actually want to be.
So important, so important. I was a treasurer of a charity from a personal perspective. We used to do that as a volunteer, a lot of work. And one of the things that I found was the forecasting is so important, because you're constantly looking to get money in, and thank you so much, and you have to know where it's coming from and what to cover the overheads. With charities and in business, the biggest stress an entrepreneur has is how are they going to clear the overheads, payroll, premises, any other commitments. Then after all of that is covered, if there's any salary or anything for them, if they are getting paid for it or not. And it's so much, and if you don't forecast ahead and look at where you're getting all this different income, is it actually covering everything, is it worth doing or not, you're setting up yourself for failure. You can't run a business really without it.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people do, and then they wonder why they've got no cash in the bank.
Exactly. So you need to know what your burn rate is.
That's it.
To then be able to then pull that lever here, or get that contract there, or a grant here,
stuff,
or whatever it might be, or reduce the hours for somebody maybe.
I think you put in a nutshell burn rate. That's how much money the business is burning through. That's what the burn rate is, and that's so important. I want to wrap up because there's been so much value, and I'm sure the audience will watch this more than that. If there was a message you're leaving to entrepreneurs or people in general, what is the biggest thing that you would give advice to people who different parts of the journey, but you think is the most important advice from your experience today, because you've got such vast experience?
Oh, that's a big question.
What comes to your head top? Normally what comes to mind, top number one thing?
For me, the number one thing is just remember that doing something together is more powerful than doing it on your own. One of the things that we're really, really focused on is breaking the silos and looking at ways we can collaborate. Because collaboration is not competition. It's actually more success for everyone, all the stakeholders.
Wow.
Once you understand that, and you're able to then package things that actually make the difference, So focus on what difference you can make first, and then how you can reverse engineer that with these different stakeholders who you may need to do that. I'll give you an example. Right now, we're doing a campaign. Everything we do is for change. Right? We are Change Head the charity, like Virgin the group, and then Virgin has all its different businesses, and we have our arms, which is for change, like Grow for Change and Growing Food. We've won an award by Bupa Healthcare for growing food in social housing and educating people how to eat healthier, addressing obesity, cholesterol and diabetes as well. So it really is a compound effect. And one of them is Drive for Change. So it's driving Ubers.
Wow.
So
You were mentioning earlier.
So we're helping women because we realize there's 10 million people one paycheck away from becoming homeless.
Wow.
And when you do the research of the 10 million...
I want to reconfirm that for the audience.
Yeah.
10 million people in the United Kingdom, one paycheck
away
from being homeless.
Absolutely.
Wow.
These are working people, not people you see on the street.
Wow.
Or surface surfing.
Wow.
These are people like you and I who are literally one paycheck away.
It is scary.
And with that comes anxiety, stress, depression, and suicide.
Wow. It's a lot of pressure.
So what we do is, how can we alleviate that pressure? So one of the campaigns is, within the family, 42% happen to be women who are someone's mother, daughter, sister, wife, or single mum. So if we can train them to become Uber drivers, they get more than minimum wage.
Wow.
They don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time to earn minimum wage.
Right.
And complete flexibility. So our partners in this are people like Uber that we're speaking with, people like Hertz, the car hire company.
Wow. And
how we can work with them. So we take the friction out of having to hire a vehicle. They can actually give them a vehicle and pay after the week. There's so many different things we can do.
Wow. Amazing. This is the kind of stuff that you see value, and I think a lot of people walk past it, don't really understand it, but it's priceless. And this is why we set up, as I said, the Next Level Finance podcast, sponsored by Gold House Accounting, Series 2, Episode 7, as I mentioned. Mohsin, what a guest. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Please do check this out. We'll put links in the comments below to Mohsin's charity Challenge Ahead, hopefully I get that right, and links to the way we help entrepreneurs. Check those out, and hope, most important, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube if you're seeing it there, or anywhere else where you're seeing, add to our following count. We love sharing content, and any other ideas, always let us know. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. As I said earlier, if you're really enjoying our content, sign up to the Gold House Gazette. It gives you a weekly free summary of what's going on in the business, property, entrepreneur world, Dubai, a whole lot of stuff. And number 2, really also important, is if you liked our YouTube channel, please do click the subscribe button. It really helps us so much. Once again, thank you for watching the podcast.